Okay, class, we're back. We stopped at number 17 in the PowerPoint of spinal cord. Here's some generalizations. Pathways, which are tracts, decussate. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Now, many of you have heard of the fact that one side of the brain controls the other side of the body, right? I know many of you have heard of that. So what happens is the decussation is crossover. Let's just take this tract here, spinal cerebellar. So it would come down, or shall I say medium lemniscal tract. It would come down and cross over and go to the other side. So many of the tracts actually do a decussation. They cross over. Not all of them now. Not all of them. Like here comes this down. And then it's going to, like the spinal thalamic, then it's crossing to go to the other side. So that means left foot would be interpreted on right side of brain, let's say, whatever. All right. Most consist of 2 or 3 neurons, okay, which would mean that you would come down, see if I can find one here, you would come down essentially and have the first neuron, let's say from the brain, or going up to the brain, a neuron here, and then a neuron coming in. So in other words, from the peripheral nervous system, neuron comes in, then you pick up a second one, then you do a third. Then you do a third. So you're coming in here, you'd pick up another one, and when you get up to a certain spot, then you'd pick up another one to essentially go to the brain there. So you'd have come in, gone up, and picked up a third. But some have 2. Most exhibit somatopy. Now let me see if I can't help you with that. Okay, for right here, let's look at motor. Okay, right here is the lateral cortical spinal tract. Okay. So right here, what you would have, that's the anterior, this would control cervical region things. This would control thoracic, lumbar, sacral area. So it's kind of in order here as to what you would do as far as that there. So that somatopy has to do with that there. Okay. All right. So we come back then. We come back, and then we look at pathways are paired symmetrically, which would be on both sides. Okay. So again, we have ascending tracts, just to show you, which are sensory, and descending tracts, which are motor. Okay. Ascending tracts generally consist of 3 neurons. A first order neuron, now let's see if we can't pull something up here. First order neuron conducts impulses from the cutaneous receptors and proprioceptors. Proprioceptors are how your body is positioned in space. So I come in, okay, branches as it enters the spinal cord, okay. Synapses with a second order neuron. So here I come up and I synapse with a second order neuron. So I came in, synapse with a second order. And then I go up to the third order neuron. So second order neuron is an inner neuron, which is totally like this one here in the spinal cord itself. And then that goes up, let's say, to the thalamus. And then the thalamus will send it to the proper location in the brain. All right, now let me I'm gonna kind of work with me here now. Let's go back. So ascending pathways. What do we know about ascending? They're sensory. Let's say they consist of 3 neurons. First order neuron, you come in like this. Okay. Then you come on up, it kind of branches, you come on up. And then you pick up a second order neuron. Okay, that's the first right there. Synapse with second order. Okay. Then the second order neuron, which is an interneuron totally in here, cell body and dorsal horn of spinal cord. See, that's dorsal horn. Axons extend to the thalamus of the cerebellum. So on a spinothalamic, see, this is spinocerebellum, but on a spinothalamic, then you'd go up, okay, and then you'd pick up in the thalamus. All right, then the thalamus is going to do the third neuron, and it's going to take you, let's say I'm doing this, to the area of the body, to the area in the brain that controls underneath your foot. When I say controls, that senses the underside of your foot. So I put in some brain. So here's the third order. Let's go back. First order comes in. Second order goes up, and let's say ends if it's spinothalamic at the thalamus, let's say. Third order, cell body and thalamus, extends to somatosensory cortex. All right, this is where this comes in, the somatosensory cortex, okay, which would be this area here. Now, this is the brain here. We'll be looking at the brain. That's your posterior anterior. Right across here is a strip of neurons. The red is motor, okay. The blue in the back. So sensory came in through the back, and even in the brain is being controlled at the back. Now in the brain, there's one strip right here. One strip. Okay, class, where we are, we were saying 3 neuron pathway. First neuron came in, this is sensory, came in, right there, came in, picked up, let's say, second neuron, I'm using another picture, then goes up to the thalamus and picks up a third. So you come in, pick up one, go up, pick up the next one, that would be the second, inner neuron, and then you're going to project to the brain. Now, where in the brain are you going to project to? So here would come this thing, and then you're going to project into the brain, let's say. You're going to project into the brain. So that was that end of that second one, let's say. Then you're going to project into the brain, and let's say you feel somebody's doing something under your foot. All right. So now I'm looking at that third order neuron that's going to go from the thalamus, a portion of the brain, up to the somatosensory cortex. All right. Now, what is the somatosensory cortex? Here's the brain. That's the front. This strip right here. This strip right here. See, this is called the precentral gyrus. It's called the postcentral. But anyway, this strip right here is your primary somatosensory cortex. Okay. Now I'm going to take it, and then I want to section the brain so you can look at it this way. So that's you looking at this right here, but from a anterior-posterior view. All right. You see how this little guy here is called a homunculus. Homunculus is a fancy name for little man. And what you have here is he's laid out like this. Now this is the somatosensory cortex, which is this right here. Now I want you to look at, we'll talk about it again in the brain, but I want you to look at the size of the structure. See, it's disproportionate to your normal body architecture, because the number of neurons in this area, this is your cortex of the brain, is associated with how many sensory receptors you have. How many sensory receptors? Now let me explain that to you. Let's say we did a 2-point discrimination test. Let me tell you, all of you've probably seen a protractor like you draw a circle with. Assume you're using a protractor, but instead of having a pencil on one end, let's say you have 2 sticky ends, 2 little pinpoint ends. Okay. What we would sometimes do as physicians, we'll do a 2-point discrimination. Okay. We'll open the protractor, and let's say I'm going to put it on your anterior thigh. I'm going to open it a little bit, but not much. I'm going to push the 2 pins down. You're going to close your eyes and tell me, I would say, how many points do you feel? 1. Then I take that same deal, not move it at all, and just take it and put it on your finger. How many you feel? 2. Because the receptors on your anterior thigh are far apart. You don't have a whole lot of, because you don't need fine touch there. But on your fingers you do. Okay? So the more receptors you have, the higher the density of sensory receptors, let's say in the skin, let's say like here, the more you're going to have to dedicate to the brain to distinguish that. So, for example, here's the foot right here. So you got a few receptors like that, but the face has a lot of them. You know, here's the finger. So when it gets to the brain, that little strip right there. So here's the foot. That little strip right there would be where you're sending the third order neuron to say something's going on. Let's say it's, something's going on. So again, you come in with the first, the second, and then the second sends it to this here. The second sends it to that there. So here's the second synapses, and then sends to that specific area. So that's kind of how it's arranged. See what we got here. So same thing here. Touch receptor coming in. Okay. Spinocerebellar here. Cerebellum has to do with balance and other things. Just showing you don't have to get real detailed on all of these tracts. So anterior lateral and ventral spinothalamic tract. Okay. Transmit pain and temperature, coarse touch within the spinothalamic tract. Pain and temperature and coarse touch. Fine touch is transmitted back here in this area here. Fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus, that's fine touch area. But spinothalamic, coarse touch, you just get a general experience. Pain and temperature, coarse touch. Okay, let's go further. So here's the spinothalamic coming in, so you get a little coarse touch, comes up, and see it crosses over. Decussation goes to that other side there. And then you'd pick up and go to the brain. So that meant that this, let's say that this right here was his, I don't know, we'll put that as his left foot. Then he would feel it on the right side. The brain would interpret it on the right side on this here, which would be that other part we don't have there. Okay. So we go further. That's spinothalamic. Spinothalamic, see, we're coming up, and then we go into that area there. So see on this, since this was this guy's foot over here, that guy's foot right there, then it would be interpreted on that other side. Okay, here again is that what I was showing you. Spinocerebellar, ventral and dorsal tracts, ventral, spinal, and dorsal tracts, and they have about muscles of tendon stretch. Remember I said the cerebellum has to do with proprioception. How you're positioned within space. How you're positioned within space. So that's that spinocerebellum, balance and everything. Okay. That's that spinocerebellum. Okay. So we go further. Descending tracts. Okay. We're going to start right there, and I'm going to start another video.